everybody. My name is Tony, and I work at the Red Hook Initiative. And I've been part of the coalition team for a little bit now, and also the planning team for this process. So Noel has asked me if I would just say hello and get us going. We're gonna learn a lot today. I've had to go to these dang meetings for like 6 months now. So, but this is the last one. And actually, I would just add, as my own personal thing, is like I was a little skeptic as it started. I was just like, what is this? But as I saw it coming together, I'm actually thinking like it actually might be a good thing that will help us when it's time, when we need our help. So this is like the first. This is gonna be the last community meeting, a chance for you to give input, but that input is never gonna stop. We're always gonna be like looking at this and changing it and adjusting it and keeping it like alive, so it'll be ready to go when it's time. So there'll be a few more meetings like in July where people will be presenting the plan to different groups that you may be invited, you probably be invited to. And then there's the actual like test run-through day that's September 13th that we'll talk about more later. There are some guests in the house. I'm going to first introduce Geeta Nandan from Thread Collective, who is going to tell you a little bit about how they're going to design the graphics and the icons to make this really easy for everyone to understand. And then she'll pass on to Noel.
So, hi everyone. I wear many hats. One of my hats is a local Red Hook resident. And I wear another hat where I'm also a designer and an architect, and I run a firm called Thread Collective. And we have Chris Rice here with us, and Tatiana Dahl, and Elliot Maltby, my other partner. So we have been charged with creating a set of communications tools for the project. And they consist of various different scopes, so we're going to try and get a branding and graphic effort to help support the Red Hook initiative. And we're going to come up with a series of icons to help you really quickly and easily identify these sort of functions, right? So, and we are also going to come up with a couple of other graphic tools that once this plan comes out, we'll be able to digest this 300-page document into ideally, no, I'm just kidding, into something that's sort of really useful and legible, both graphically and in terms of being able to read it. So you don't have to read this 30, 40-page document. You can go through a booklet or a brochure and be able to really understand it quickly. And then in addition, we're going to make a sort of takeaway, which will be a one-pager that may or may not be able to be laminated, that you can put in your top drawer, stick on your refrigerator, and then we'll have a map of the readiness program, a map of the locations, and an explanation of what this is. It'll be kind of like an emergency go-to thing when something happens. You'll know exactly what to do and where to go and how to get going. So those are some of the tools that we're making, and we've just really sort of started brainstorming about what this whole thing looks like, and we definitely wanted to have a very community aspect, a feel that it really came from us, and that it wasn't this sort of very official kind of thing that somebody else did for us. And we actually just started, we started brainstorming today, and we just noticed, looking around the room, that you guys have actually started your own little graphics. Well, they're kind of great. They're actually stuff that we've been talking about. So we may take some photographs, but I would like to say that if anybody has any ideas or wants to sort of send us a note or say, just come up and talk to us today, you can be like, I think that it should be orange, or any little input that you might want to be able to have, we're more than happy to listen to. And we will be presenting the work as we go along, so we're not just going to give it to you and say, we're done, I hope you like it. So we will be presenting you to the committee and to you guys a couple of options, and then you guys can give us some feedback, and we'll be refining it. So there will be some time for a process for you guys to be able to work with us also. So, sweet.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yes, please, and thank you. Because they're doing this for us pro bono, and I think that that's significant, and I think so many people have contributed And I do not want to be remiss and overlook the fact that we have Nydia Velasquez here today, and Dan Wiley has been such an instrumental part of this, and you've been such a tremendous supporter. Would you like to say a few words before we start?
Well, look, it's always so great to be home, and we are in session in Washington, but tomorrow is a primary, and I know that a lot of people even do not know that there is a primary happening in my district, but in any case, so I'm here for that reason, otherwise I'll be in Washington. But given the fact that this is happening, I just wanted to be here, and the same thing is happening in the Lower East Side, and it's just so beautiful and wonderful to see that this is a recognition that the first responders in any natural disasters are here. You know, it's the community, it's the small businesses, it's the residents, it's the city agencies. And so we need to be not only better prepared, but to have the tools, information, communication, and that there is protocol to follow so that the next time we are better prepared. And I can tell you how many hours we spent here in Redwood identifying elderly people who were trapped in those high rises or in the Lower East Side. So this is a response that has to happen from the ground up and not from the top down. And it is key that we have a better coordination interagency when it comes to agencies such as NYCHA. I had a meeting with the chair. She's wonderful. And right after Sandy, I introduced legislation calling for housing authorities with more than 500 units of housing to have a disaster management plan in place. And this is all part of this, and I am just so grateful for all the effort, for all the energy, your commitment, and your participation. And I know that we will pray not to go through such an experience again, but I know and I'm confident that this community will be ready to stand it. And more importantly, that we are going to rebuild to last. This is not going to be short-term solutions, but we need to look at resiliency going forward. Thank you.
So we can wrap now. I think those were all the high points. I think we're good. Nydia mentioned NYCHA. I wanted to say thank you so much. We met with NYCHA this week. Dan brokered that relationship and that meeting, as did Jessica, was part of that from the planning team. And NYCHA came to a meeting on Tuesday. They are here in the house today. Thank you very much. So that is huge. Thank you. We also have Fifth Avenue Committee in here. I've got Karen here from Felix Ortiz's office. Karen, you want to say a few words? She never was.
No, it's election time tomorrow, every day, go out and vote for your national congressperson, and other than that, it's graduation and it's summertime, just be safe.
Beautiful. And we've got Red Cross in the house. Thank you very much for coming. We have a new face for Red Cross. Suzanne sent us good people, which we always appreciate. So we've got a lot of people here, and this is the perfect night for everybody to be here because this is the last meeting. Yay! I know you're going to miss me. On the upside, I will be spending, as will the planning team, be spending the next 2 months here in Red Hook presenting the plan from beginning to end so that there is ample opportunity for every resident in Red Hook to come and see the plan. We recognize that not everybody can get here and be part of this process, and that we all have a whole day that happens before 6 o'clock. And so sometimes getting here is just painful. I hear it. But we do want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity to see the plan in action. Tonight, we will be walking through one component of the plan. So I'm going to give you, for those of you who've been here before, who has never been here before? Who chose the last meeting to come for the first time? Tell me. Give it up. Woo! NYCHA in the house. Red Cross. Okay, that's okay. NYCHA and Red Cross, we can catch you guys up. That means everybody else in here is a veteran and you know what I'm talking about, which means I get to do this in 30 seconds or less. Are you ready? Are you ready? You look really ready, love. What is a long-term community recovery recovery plan, Jessica, what is the long-term community recovery plan?
The long-term community recovery plan is the 72 hours after an event response that the community has come up with to develop. So it's that planning 72 hours before that needs to happen in an emergency if we know about it, and the 72 hours after how the community would deal with it.
Big round of applause. That's awesome. So tonight, we have put together a readiness plan. In our documented plan, at the end of this, there will actually be a documented plan. It is not 300 pages. I really don't have that much time on my hands, and nor does anybody want to read 300 pages. The actual document, beginning to end, will probably be about 25 pages. The first chapter, you guys are sick of this, right? Chapter 1 is the process. It will be all the boring stuff, all the meetings we had, what we covered in the meeting, who came to the meeting, okay. Chapter 1. Chapter 2 is the living list of recovery projects that are happening here in Red Hook. I have 2 points on this. Number 1, the recovery projects list exists online. If you need the website, it is not up on the wall at all. So if you need the website, it is the company website, emp-emergency.com/redhook. That's the first note. The second note is an apology. I just got on that website today and realized it is not updated. I also realized it's because it is updated to another page that is not public. So that will transfer at some point in the next 24 hours. I apologize immensely. It is a faux pas on EMP's part. But if you go to emp-emergency.com/redhook, and if you need that, I'll give it to you slower and write it down later. You can see this list of projects. Chapter 3 is the readiness plan, which we have been working on for the last 3 meetings. And the readiness plan, we're going to walk through tonight. So if you've not been here for the whole thing, tonight you get to come and see the fruits of our labor. So this is a great night to be here. Chapter 4 is the plan for the plan, which is what do we do with all this work we just did for the last 8 months when we're done? That's a very good question. We have reached out to and started a conversation with Community Board 6, Craig Hammerman, who has voiced an interest in picking up the maintenance for this plan for a number of reasons. Number 1 is because they already have an infrastructure in place to manage that kind of stuff. It makes sense that they would pick a plan up every 6 months, make sure it's up to date and current, and have a meeting to make sure the community is still familiar with it. That makes sense. The number 2 reason is because we are hoping to start this process again in the Gowanus, and I'm not just saying that because the Fifth Avenue Committee is here, but also because we are doing this in other areas, and because we're doing it in other areas, it makes sense that the community board would hold all those plans and have one effort to make sure they're all coordinated and up to date. So that's why. And that is the plan for the plan. And that's what we're doing tonight. So, there's a lot going on in the room. Does anybody have any questions at this point? I hope not. Excellent. You probably do, but that's okay. I appreciate you being like, I'm not asking right now. That's okay. So what we're going to do tonight is we are going to walk through an event. And you have a lot of stuff in front of you. You have a piece of paper that has support functions. You have a colored Post-it note. And if you are on my planning team, you have a clipboard. Because clipboards speak authority, don't they? I always think you either have a shovel or you have a clipboard, and that's the person in charge. So that is true for tonight's event as well. There's no shovels, though. Heads up. We are going to walk through an event. This is our scenario here. It's the exact same scenario as Hurricane Sandy. You guys should be good at this by now. But I want to be super clear. The plan we've put in place for readiness is not about a hurricane. It's about a whatever event, right? It's about anything. A blackout could just be a flood with no hurricane. This is Red Hook. We pull that, right? So we want to walk through this event from beginning to end, from the first advisory all the way out to the 72 hours after. For those of you who are not familiar, we plan for the first 72 hours as a community because the government wants us to. Because every piece of literature from FEMA to New York City OEM to the state OEM says we need our communities to plan for themselves for the first 72 hours. And that's what we have accomplished here in this room. And we've actually finished it, and I'm super excited to walk through it. So without further ado, we're going to do that right now. I want to take a minute and introduce Gillian Kay. Wave. Gillian Kay is my partner in crime. She started working at EMP in February. We stole her from the Brooklyn Community Foundation's Brooklyn Recovery Fund, where she was the director post-disaster. And as soon as they wrapped that fund up, we couldn't get her started fast enough. She is here tonight to make this go smoothly and to keep me on track because I tend to go on. So she's here to make sure we are not going on. In front of you have a Post-it note. Can my planning members please stand up? You have a clipboard if you're a planning member. Stand up. This is not going to be a night where everybody gets to sit stationary. So if you've got things in front of you, stuff going on, does anyone not have a Post-it note? Everybody got a Post-it note? Get a Post-it note. Your man gets a Post-it note. Awesome. You're going to be walking around. So here's the deal. We have 6 emergency support functions, which are on the back wall over here. No, those are the where. Where are they? Right here. Oh, those functions are... No, they're right here behind me. Best place to hide them right behind. These are the 6 support functions. We pulled these out of the 15 support functions that FEMA uses because we only need this for the first 72 hours. This is what they are. This is what they do. This is how they activate and where they're supposed to respond. You don't have to be able to read this because it's on the paper that you were handed when you came in. Take a second, get familiar. Communications and coordination, where are you? Communication and coordination is Tony. He's green. If you have a green Post-it note, that's your guy. You don't need to move right now. I'm just going to let you know where your people are. You get to watch how this unfolds in just a second. I've got utilities. Is Victoria Hegman. Thank you. She's yellow. They look the same. You know, the Post-it note array of colors is really lame. So it's almost the same, but one's green and one's yellow. You can sort it out. Excellent. I've got food and shelter. Miss Karen, thank you very much. And she is purple. You're not pink, you're purple. Turn your flip chart over. She's purple. If you have a purple Post-it note, you are, that's beautiful. She wanted pink because it matched her dress. You're not fooling anybody, lady. That's purple. She is going to be our food and shelter, which is actually the church's and Sister Rosanna, but she's not here tonight because we have just meetinged her to death. I didn't saw her before I came here. She is fried. So Karen's stepping in. I've got health and medical from Jessica. That's blue. If you have a blue Post-it note, you're with the health and medical team tonight. You're welcome. And I've got public safety, my buddy Dale in the back. Hold it up. You're red or in, Post-it note color array. You are pink. Awesome. Did I get everybody?
Yeah, you got everybody.
And I've got Rob in the back who is logistics management, which is orange. So if you have an orange Post-it note, Rob's your guy. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to do it like it actually does. These are my leads. Now, they've cheated a little because they've walked through this before. Okay, so they're going to walk us through it. At some point during the event, everybody gets activated. You guys are not actually responders, so we're going to talk that out a little bit. What that means is, and I don't want to be remedial, and I'm not trying to talk down to people, but I want to be super clear. It means at a certain point, and it says so on that paper you have, it means you go to work. That's what it is. It's not going to make sense for everybody in Red Hook to get up and go to work at every point in this activation because we live here and because we're going to be impacted. So we're going to have a lot of redundancy. We have several leads. We have at least 3 leads for each function. And we're going to ask people tonight to sign up for emergency support functions that they feel make sense for them here in the community. And we're going to be making that request at every one of the planned presentations. So just so we're clear, we're going to be building those teams up. Each one of the leads, Tony, can you hold your chart up for a second? Other side? Has a lead sheet. Only the lead has the lead sheet. We're building these sheets so that whoever has to step into this role can get that sheet, and there's a checklist. What do I do? And now you know. So everybody has their list of stuff, and we've been working on this. This is all as a result of our meetings. So I'm pretty excited to get started. So we're going to do a start right now. So let's talk about Hurricane Sandy, but we're going to give it another name. Tonight we're going to call it Hurricane Nydia. Only because you're here.
Not bad.
Yes.
Anybody here from FEMA?
There is nobody here from FEMA, baby. You know what? I'm going to tell you that for those people who just come intermittently, just as a reminder.
It was good.
Yeah, FEMA, New York City, OEM, everybody had their own experiences with these agencies, but in the first 72 hours, we don't care. Good, bad, indifferent, whatever your feelings are, that's okay. You don't have to agree with me and I don't have to agree with you, but we do have to be prepared for that first 72 hours because ain't none of them going to be here. Okay? Okay? What? You got FEMA. All right. We're not going to do FEMA jokes tonight. That's the rule. No FEMA jokes tonight. I'm going to try really hard not to do FEMA jokes tonight. So we're going to walk through. Now, walk through this with me. And as you get activated, I want you to go to the place you're supposed to activate. This is IKEA at this table. This is RHI at this table. This is Visitation Church. I've got Micchio Center on the back table, and the stockpile here, and it's called stockpile because we haven't actually identified a location yet. But we have a pretty good one in mind. We are going to get started with our very first weather advisory. Now, if you remember, the first advisory for Hurricane Sandy, but in this case it's Nydia, came about 10 days out, right? It came a solid week before, and it was beautiful outside. I know, because I was in Florida, and it was stunning.
It came from Puerto Rico?
It came through Puerto Rico, up the coast, and it was stunning right up until about, I'm going to say 3 days before when it got really cloudy and gross. And some of us get to go to Europe, and some of us don't. Dan just got back from Europe, so we're going to hope he keeps up with us. So we get our first weather advisory, and I know you're dying to know what it is. Our first weather advisory is a fully formed hurricane on the East Coast is expected to make landfall in the Northeast. That is our first advisory. And the first group that activates during the first weather advisory is? That'd be you, Clay.
Communications group.
Give it up, Clay.
Communications group.
Up on your feet.
Yes.
Communications, I need
Agreed.
you guys to respond to your location, please. Come on, people, it's an up on your feet night. If you are communications,
They may not know it's at RHI. It's at RHI.
It's RHI. Green stickers at RHI. If you don't work for communications, you're in the wrong place. Everybody out of RHI. I warned you.
Yellow and green is confusing.
Yeah, when you stand together, it'll be okay, but I did that a little bit on purpose, so it'll be okay. I promise. It'll be okay. Okay, it's okay. If the wrong people end up there, it's going to be okay. I promise. If you're working communications, you're in RHI. All right, Tony, what are you doing in the first? Tony.
Yes, sorry.
You're talking.
Comparing people are supposed to be here.
Yes. So we got the first weather advisory, Tony. Walk us
And
through.
we are going to send out an advisory through all of the different ways that we can. That just says that, it's an alert. It's like, get ready. There's an advisory.
Could happen. That's it. That's really it. And at this point, to be perfectly honest, it could not happen. So this is just kind of a heads up. So
And
that's our first
I'll
advice.
just add, because it says it here, and it's interesting. It will go out through it via the hub, the Wi-Fi network, volunteers and flyers, block and billing captains, government and city calls, and a hashtag.
Which is awesome. And the hashtag, by the way, is... Say it again? The hashtag or the pound sign, depending on who you are. And I think it's ready, ready, it says what it is.
That's ready, red, over, yeah.
Ready, ready, ready. Okay? That's the first weather advisory. And that's all that happens for the first 3 days. Wasn't that exciting?
There's no one acting in
Well,
Dan's here. Dan.
Tony and Dan, which actually might be all the communication we need, frankly. That's beautiful. All right, so 3 days go past, everybody's aware, but there are other things going on. Rob, what are you doing during that first advisory? Tell me who you are and what you're doing.
I'm Rob, and I'm leaving town. Actually, I'm activating all the transportation, resource
Logistics
management.
management.
Yeah, that's what, yeah. Logistics management, yeah, I'm just going down the line here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to IKEA, which is over there.
Not yet, because you're not activated yet.
Okay, so I'll stay my house.
First city advisory. What we're doing is each of our support functions are sending messages to their team. Victoria is utilities. Victoria, what are you doing during the first city advisory, or during the first weather advisory?
I'm touching base with the utilities team.
Just make sure they have the information. That's it. That's all we're doing is we're passing it around. I'm not going to walk through each one of the functions. They're all doing the same thing. Okay? So 3 days go by and we get our next advisory, and this is the first city advisory. New York City sends out an advisory. A hurricane is expected to make landfall in the next 96 hours in New York. Okay? They're only sending this out if it's actually happening because it puts a lot of things in motion. So we can now safely assume that's going to happen. So here we are on Wednesday, June 25th. That's like 2 days from now. I have a big day that day, so I hope this doesn't happen. And we get our first city advisory. And what happens at the first city advisory? Who gets activated at the first city advisory? Come on, Rob. I'm looking at you. Logistics management gets activated. Where do you go when you're activated? Where's your primary location?
IKEA.
IKEA, get over here. Everybody who's working logistics has an orange flag. Everybody over to the IKEA table. Orange, Renee is super happy she didn't have it. All right, what are you doing? You just got activated. What are you doing, Rob?
Well,
Make it loud, baby.
I'm going to contact our supply vendors and a stockpile. I'm going to notify New York City Transit standby.
Right, the buses.
The buses. Also, all our vendors that we know of that can supply us with flashlights and wind-up radios and flashlights.
Okay, awesome. So logistics is our stockpile. It is our coordination. They're going to be working with communication and coordination to make sure that the information is getting out. And they will also be responsible for setting up the daily meetings. So that's an important function right here. And they get activated before the storm when we know it is inevitable because we need to move that stuff. People need to access the stockpile to get things ahead of time in some cases. And we want to make sure that they know they have access no matter when it is, right? So that's logistics. What is communications doing at this point?
We're going to set another advisory to a reminder to look at your readiness plan in your drawer.
Right, that laminated, beautiful readiness plan that Gita and her team made for you. Thank you, Gita. All right, and the other emergency support functions who have not activated yet are doing what? Jessica, what are you doing during the city advisory?
I'm just sending word out to the health and medical team that something's coming. Let's predetermine a meeting place, but really that's it.
Beautiful. Awesome, and that's Jessica from the Red Hook Justice Center. She's part of the planning team, and she will be working on health and medical, it looks like, all the time now with Matt. Matt Kershaw, who cannot be here today tonight because of work. God bless that man. Okay, so that's where we're at, and that's what all the other support functions are doing at this point. They haven't activated yet, so they're just checking with their team and making sure the information keeps going through. All right, when we get everybody to the table, I promise there'll be function for the rest of you. All right, then we get to the next stage of our disaster, which is the city mandatory evacuation. The city sends out a notice of a mandatory evacuation in all flood zones 1 or 2. For those of you who don't know the new flood zones, they're numbered, they're not lettered. Makes it feel new, I guess, I'm not sure. But at any rate, if you were an A, B, now you're a 1, 2, 3. So all levels 1 and 2 are now being mandatory evacuation. So now we have our public safety gets activated. Dale, where are you? Who are you? What are you doing?
Public safety should be meeting at MICIO.
Public safety is meeting at the MICIO. If you are red or pink, you are public safety and you're at the MICIO. Awesome. And if you are Officer Mulroney and just walked in and you need to be at the MICIO.
Hi, everybody.
That's beautiful. Your timing was impeccable as always. All right, what are you doing? Well, you've been activated. What is your role, Dale? Big and loud.
Door to door, make sure people who want to evacuate, assist buses and show people where to go and watch buses that can be used.
Right. So the reason public safety activates at the mandatory evacuation is to help support the evacuation. We realize after Sandy, not everybody doesn't evacuate out of complacency. There's a lot of reasons people don't evacuate. And in some cases, they didn't evacuate because they couldn't or they didn't understand. There's a door-to-door component that happens there. There's coordination at the buses so people know where to go and where their shelters are going to be. And so that we have people from the community that they know and trust at the evacuation spaces where they feel more comfortable. They can get on the buses. If people want to evacuate, we want to make sure that they have every opportunity to do so. That's what public safety is about. Our public safety in Red Hook, very clear, is, he waits and then he interrupts, is not about arresting people or martial law. I want to be super clear about that. It is not about traffic control or crowd control. It's really about emergency response. It's about checking on our neighbors. It's about making sure everybody has an opportunity to evacuate if they want to. And it's about trying to keep our neighbors safe. So that's what the public safety is about in this specific instance. All right, so we are at mandatory evacuation. Communications, what are you doing?
We're going to let everybody know there's a mandatory evacuation. and where to get the buses, and where the Red Hook shelter will be located.
It's beautiful. And the Red Hook shelters, all the shelters in New York City are at public schools outside of the zones. And there's a dedicated shelter for that purpose. Sometimes it changes, but they send that notification out and communications will make sure it passes on. Logistics, what are you doing during the mandatory evacuation?
And I'm going to be calling in first, Jackie East Depot, making sure that the buses are being dispatched to Red Hook. I'm going to have all our people heading over to the, let me get this, that building again. Stockpile.
Stockpile building, thank you.
Verona.
Verona. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Sorry, I was late from a meeting from campus. I
That's
couldn't
okay.
meet you.
The building looks brilliant. We found a stockpile building, maybe that's a note for another time.
Yes.
Okay.
And also contacting all our vendors who will buy the supplies like Catholic Charities and City Harvest and all of them to
Sure.
get our supplies ready for us.
So logistics is making sure that the supplies that are in the stockpile are up to date and ready and taken care of, like flashlights and batteries and things of that nature, but also reaching out to other vendors to let them know we are ready to go here in Red Hook. And if they have additional resources, I'm your contact. Please call me. So that after this storm, there's no question about where stuff goes. They call Rob because it's the only number they know. So perfect. That's beautiful. We're going to put your number on every wall in Red Hook, Rob. Excellent. What are some of the other support functions doing? We're at mandatory evacuation. Food and shelter is doing what at mandatory evacuation, Mama Karen?
I'm alerting everyone who's on the food and support team to come on in. We're also checking to make sure we have enough space to receive the stuff from the stockpile. Just spacing things out and just getting ready for distribution and distribution.
Perfect. And just so you know, our food and shelter space post-disaster in the first 72 hours is Visitation Church, which seemed to be the mecca for the last one, and we're going to use that again. And if Mama Rosana were here, she would tell me that also I owe her 2 generators that she wants to keep in her basement. So I feel like I can't get through a meeting without saying it, so I just want to put it out there. And for Christmas, EMB is going to buy her 2 generators. Gail, put it on the list. Okay, awesome. Woo! Yes. Where is the stockpile? Stockpile right now, we don't have a building identified, but we are looking at a building on Verona because it's elevated, it wasn't flooded, and the church has access to it, and it's right next door to the church for easy access.
Visitation hall.
Yeah, visitation hall, the old visitation hall. Yeah. 2 doors down, yeah. But that's not for sure just yet. Yeah, we're working that out. Okay, so we have the evacuation, and then we have an event. Now in this case, about 36 hours after the evacuation was really when it hit. About 24 hours after the evacuation, we had a lot of wind, we had some rain, we had the storm, we had the hurricane come up, 36, 40, we're getting to the 48 mark, and that's when the high tide hit, and that's when we had the surge, right? So that's how Red Hook plays out, and that's what we expect to happen again. So here we are on Monday, June 30th, and Hurricane Nydia has come through and has left in her wake a 10-foot wall of water all through Red Hook. Thank you. Thank you. I'm not blaming you directly. I'm saying. So that is the event that happened here. So during that event, no matter where you are, no matter what your function is, no matter what your role, whether you evacuated, whether you didn't, where are you right now?
Headed to your designated place.
To your designated place. Yeah, go be safe. I don't need anybody out in the street going, run, run, run. Okay, that's crazy. You guys go back to your homes, buckle down with your people. If you have a first floor location, find a second floor location. Ideally, you're not in Red Hook. You need to adhere, I think all the paperwork says, adhere to the city notifications and requests and instructions. That is the safest bet. If you are here for whatever your reasons, buck down and prepare for the worst. And the worst is a big 10-foot wall. Hurricane Nydia. So we get that. 96 to 110 mile-an-hour winds. We have a surge, which is 6 to 8 feet, coming up to 10 feet in some of the locations here in Red Hook. And then it goes away in about 3 hours. And it leaves a lot of damage. So now we're going to get here. The first 6 hours. First 6 hours. Who's activated in the first 6 hours? All right, let's go. Let's start with health and medical.
So I'm gonna call our team together and we'll go to the stockpile where medical kits should already be at to get ready to go visit vulnerable populations and do checkups.
Beautiful. So our health and medical team, you guys remember from one of our last meetings, has decided they need to be mobile because it's health and medical for 72 hours, right? So they have a couple of paramedic bags in the stockpile, stocked ready to go, which logistics is already checked on in the days before the storm. So those kits are ready to go. The health and medical leads pick them up and they meet in their primary location, which is?
The MICU.
The MICU. So if you are health and medical and you have a blue tag, you belong in the MICU. Don't rush, people. I know you're excited. I know it's really cold in here. Does somebody want to turn the heat on? Or can we open that door? I think the noise is less of a concern than people passing out. Awesome. All right. What is health and medical doing the first 6 hours? Jessica. Health and medical the first 6 hours?
6 hours we're just doing checkups on vulnerable populations. So we're ready to have that information and can just do those house checks.
And we have that information because people have signed up for voluntary welfare checks. They've signed a form that says, yes, please come check on me. And so they go and they check on them. That's beautiful. What is communications doing? Hang on just a second, Tony. Yes, Martha. Hang on just a second, Tony.
I'm just gonna say, what if someone is injured, they can't get to a hospital, where would they go? Like, where will, you guys are mobile, so where
Sure.
do you take somebody to the MICU and there'll be somebody there who can
Yes,
handle walking?
That's exactly right. It's a divide and conquer kind of a mission, but also at the MICU is public safety, and there's some level of coordination there. The other piece is at the bottom of the laminated piece, whatever that is, Martha, the junk drawer item that you and I were talking, the brochure, that will have a phone number for people to call that makes sense, and that's something that's in the works right now, and I don't know what that's going to be at this point. If it happens this week for real, you can call my cell phone. I'll pick up. But I think that right now the answer is to go to the MICU. The MICU is where all of our public safety, health, and medical will be, so the MICU is the answer. Communication coordination, first 6 hours. Tony.
We're gonna let people know where the resources are, where the support functions are at, and where to go for what you need.
Beautiful. Logistics, what are you doing in the first 6 hours?
I'm going to open up all our stockpiles. Actually, might even notify more buses to come back in case people need to be transported in groups to the hospital or to the radio center, wherever the supplies are, and then make sure that our stockpile teams are there, helping up, setting up, and getting ready for distribution.
Excellent. Excellent. Where are we with food and shelter?
We are accessing what we have so far. We're gonna reach out to outside partners that might be able to give us food at that time, and also inside. We have a farm, we have pantries in Butler, so we should just be pooling all our resources at that point.
Pull all the resources, pull them into visitation, and making sure that it's good to go for distribution. And the goal at Visitation Church is to open the doors for support ASAP. Could be 12 hours, could be 24 hours, it'll be event driven, right? So we don't know. So that's exactly right. And if Sister Rosanna has her way, she'd be open an hour after the storm. She goes like that, she can say. So that's beautiful. And then we get to the 12-hour mark, and we start having daily meetings and communications. Where are we at the 12-hour mark? Who's still waiting to be activated? I've got utilities hanging out there. Where are you at in the 12-hour mark, utilities? Can you talk a little bit about utilities, Victoria? I know it's not your favorite thing to talk about.
So basically, utilities is just going to be coordinating with the city agencies and the heads of different utility agencies, like Con Ed and Keyspan, and or not Keyspan anymore, National Grid, like Keyspan's over, and Time Warner and Verizon about getting some of our functions back on. So the whole role is that everybody just sees those agencies are already coordinated with the utilities team. So instead of everybody calling Con Ed, there's one person for Con Ed to call and manage getting services turned back on for rec.
And that's beautiful, and that's exactly right. And IKEA was here at the last community meeting, and for those of you who missed it, I got a little foot club because it was a really emotional moment where IKEA promised in front of the whole community to open their doors to support our logistics and support our utilities with charging stations, places to sit, places above water where there's no damage, where we can have shelter and spaces to nap, and whatever else is necessary. IKEA came in full force with several people to one of our last community meeting and vouched a lot of support. So we're very thankful for that. And utilities will also be at IKEA for that reason. That's going to be where all of the power is. Utilities will also be responsible for coordinating fuel for the generators, but that's also going to fall towards logistics a little bit. So it makes sense that they're in the same space. And so that's how that
If I
goes.
say,
Yes.
if I may say.
You may say anything you like.
I remember having a meeting with FEMA and being on the phone with IKEA. So trying to set up a disaster center at FEMA, and there were issues of liability and so on. So this time around, all those logistics will be in place.
In place ahead of time.
It could immediately be activated.
That's the goal of a plan, yes, that's exactly right. The goal here, we're not doing anything different here than happened after the storm organically. All we've done here is put some shape to it, and now it is cemented. And we've cemented it through these meetings, but we have also cemented it in our conversations with the different groups. RHI does not want to be the hub for everything, but they do want to be a hub for communications, which makes perfect sense, and so that's how they're going to support. The same thing with IKEA and the support that they can lend, and the idea is we plan it ahead of time, and we're good to go when it actually happens. Okay, so we are, yes?
So with those utilities, will we have, like, where are those phone numbers, those contacts? Will there have been a meeting already now?
So I'm so glad you asked. It's like you're on my script. That's super perfect, actually. So what each table has is a lead. Leads, can you raise your hand for me again one more time? In front of the lead is a sheet of paper. And that sheet of paper is a checklist of what they should do and what calling lists they're going to need, what information they're going to need. And now you are all in little groups at little tables, which is perfect, because I would like you to work with your lead for the next 10 minutes to go over the to-do list that is in front of the lead and hash out some of the gaps. What do you think you need? Do we need a calling tree? Gita just kind of hit that on the head. We don't have those phone numbers yet. The question is, who do we call? What is the team? I will put this out to you. If you would like to, as a community member of Red Hook, sign up to be in one of these emergency support functions, let that individual know tonight they have a sign-up sheet. Okay? And these champions will take your name and your email address, and you will be emailed additional information about that function. That will give you more information. There will be a separate meeting just for utilities, a separate meeting just for health and medical, a separate meeting just for communications and coordination to work out things like that. Now that we've come together, now that we're in this space, we've activated at this time, what are the next steps? Who do we have to call? Who are our points of contact at Con Edison, DEP, the NYPD? Yes, ma'am.
Food supply.
Food supply.
Okay, so there was my staff and people here making phone calls trying to identify who could donate food, like Chetro, right? Goya, we got hot meals. So are you going to be collecting contact people with their telephone numbers in all those companies that were able, that were here? They help.
So that's exactly what we're going to do right now. Yes. And I would love it if you could put Jetro and Goya on that list.
Yeah.
And if we have contacts for them, great. If we don't have the contacts, but you think it would be awesome to have a contact to DEP, put it on the list, and we will find a contact for DEP. Right now, I just want you to work within your group at your table. The leads from our planning group will facilitate at each table the to-do list. Read down the to-do list, talk through the activation we just walked through, and spend the next 10 minutes sorting out what you need in your group. Go.
Utilities right now is temporarily at the stockpile.
Yeah, utilities is in the stockpile. If you have a yellow tag.
Hi, how are you? I'm Victoria. Nice to meet you. County is a national grid.
The star is like food. I'm trying to think of who would lend us some kind of like Because we have a stockpile. The Red Cross is she's gonna have a meeting here, all like this, and we're gonna go over No, that's what Dan said, yeah. Oh, no, I'm talking about Noel. Right, but Noel, we're gonna have a meeting with all our elected officials, so that we'll give all of the
They also have a huge distribution.
Yeah, it's kind of, if you look at it, the way they showed me, it's like a bunch of like tiles, and the ones that are yellow are official, and the ones that aren't are just like someone put something out there, you know. And then what we do eventually, every week, we take the yellow ones and put them up across the top as like the banner. So like these are the ones you really should see. What I mean is like this kiosk or whatever it is. This is a website. Is there multiple locations? The library. Oh, I didn't ever take the hub list. The library and here have the big bulletin boards that have like the official section and the participatory section. And then there's every week you get the top 10 bulletins and put them on like an 8.5 by 11 or a legal pad or whatever, and put them throughout the neighborhood. And they're also supposed to be like frames, like branded frames for bodegas and restaurants that you put the bulletin list in. So there's like they call the hub like the mini version that is in like the neighborhood.
Are there any sections that you really don't think?
There's not sections, but there are lots of people. I mean, there's lots of Spanish speakers, there's lots of Asian, Chinese.
And they clean up things. My wife is sick. They bring food, they bring everything, water. We didn't have the camera for nothing. They bring everything.
But they contract for 7 years. Like you
They
should
was there.
expect that.
Wait a minute. They was there too. Like the storm happened. The next day they was there. They was there. They was in my bed the next day. They was in the high rise. The next day they was there. If you live in the high rise, I don't know what was there. The high rise, they was there.
They say, oh, people's not home. They was like, I walked around. They didn't see us. So like, they took that plastic soap and then they sat in the car. That's just a show. So 9 people up and right. All right.
They did a good job, you know. They did a good job. I hear people, oh, they ain't did nothing. They ain't did nothing.
Sooner we can get everybody on solar power than
Well, then you don't need a generator at all. Right. You only need like a 200-watt bulb to run for, 6 or 7 hours from like 6 p.m.
Sure, for sure. The other thing is having a plan for Plus, there's some those little lights that you couldn't run on the lawn, like in the suburbs. I'm like, how do they make it? They're super, I've never seen them for like $20. You can post them all day. So you can buy them online or it's a mason jar that just like, and on the top it connects, like with a connection. I have them in my apartment. Yeah. And they're actually pretty bright, and I'm sure they make them in a large bottle.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't know how easy it'd be to recruit people to do this job. Probably not terribly easy to do. You could have representatives.
It's gotta be like 40 days because, if people do opt the back rate, now down to 30. So then they hurt now down, so maybe the next 8 days.
Well, maybe if that is going to make it That's true. That's true. Or if there are these other programs like the Black Hawk and LTCR does it, part of their role is
we have this group of 1 week out, they don't know what to do. Everyone's going to know what to do at certain times or at wherever they have. We are thinking about talking. So everybody will have a talking. Everybody will know that this is going to happen at this time. So we are here at this time and go here, look for people, go back to the hub, the food supplies, all right? Pick up some food, go around and help people out. Not just a single unit, we're many.
So you're saying communication is basically everybody's going to communication.
Questions? Any other questions? I'm sorry. Anybody else here of this? Yeah, that's what I said. Anybody else here?
You signed up.
I got her already. That's why I said anybody else. I got her. Yes.
Our evacuation was just a project that 4 people wanted to.
Wasn't much better.
It was just a
cops, FPY. It's more ensuring the evacuate and assisting and reaching out to the population for like check-in.
Sorry, guys, let me wrap it up in the next 2 to 5 minutes and be ready to report out everything your function is from the beginning of the event to the end, okay? One person should share.
So like on the ground in Red Hook, like community residents. Okay, check-in, standard check-in.
Right, nobody uses the
Yeah.
for medical service they need.
Which could be an innovation. Bullhorn, imaging, communication.
All right, guys.
You're gonna be really late. If I
Rachel, what did you say the beginning of
All right, guys. If we were in elementary school, I would put my hand up and count 1, 2.
Oh, there you go, with the light out.
Look at the light. I hope nobody has epileptic seizures in here. Awesome. So I'm hoping you all have a really good list and you've written it down because I'm going to collect that from you. But I want to take a second. A good supporter of ours, Felix Ortiz, has just walked in. I just want to give you a few seconds to say hello to everybody and say a few words.
2 seconds, it's over.
Okay, ready? Felix Ortiz, everybody. Yeah.
Let me just very quick. I don't want to take too much of the time, but I love the word nutrition and exercise. And we here, we're talking about what kind of thing that we can do, who can we reach out to, like Jetro, what you call, Costco and other places to make sure that we have enough resources, so that we have enough food available for our people. But you know, one of the things is that what you're doing is remarkable. And I commend Noel and all of you for continue to put people together throughout the community to really re-emphasize on this. I'm going to share this with you. I met with the Homeland Security person from the governor's office about probably 3 weeks ago. And the reason I did that is because the governor was talking about some issue regarding resiliency and preparedness and all that stuff. So one of the things that I decided to do is to have him, now that we finish section, to invite him to come to Red Hook. And then we're going to have him in Red Hook, and we're going to do a simulation in Red Hook. And that simulation is going to help every single one of us from this side all the way to the end on how should we get prepared for the future in case something really happens. As you know, this is now the time for the weather to begin to hit. And for those of you who know, we got rain the other day, and the Van Run Street got flooded. And I was there because I worked with the DEP people, with the mayor's office people. And two things. Number one, what they need to do is to really continuously they need to clean up because those things are so old that in order to repair that, it's gonna be not only millions, but billions of dollars. That is the reason why I put a $2.5 billion infrastructure bond act to make sure that we will be able to get money from that. But let me just very shortly again, thank you for what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. You know, we're finishing over and you're gonna see more of my face around, more than we saw before. And, but this is very important for me. It is important because what we went through and people came together. And I hope that we can continue to come together. And I get things together with the Secretary of Homeland Security in Albany and let you know, and we all will participate on that simulacro or simulation, whatever the government wants to call it. Okay? So thank you very much.
And I know nobody's more excited to see your face more often than Karen, so that's very exciting.
That's my Felix.
It's Felix.
That's on nighttime and the daytime.
It's hard to tell which one of you is better looking. It's a very
She is better
Oh,
looking than me.
come
She's better looking.
Who attends the most of your meetings?
I love you, baby. I love you all. It's my job to love everybody in this space. I love all of you. I will just like to start now with some report out on what we just did. So we have an activation. We know what we need to do before the storm hits and the first 72 hours after the storm hits. What we need to know is what each specific function really needs down in the weeds of that function. And so I want to go ahead and start, and I'm going to do it in order of activation. So I'm going to start with communication and coordination. If you guys can stand up and report out what your function needs.
So we focus a little bit on low-tech stuff that we might need. Like, and we listed bullhorns and flyers that sort of are like pre-populated with the kind of information we think we're going to want to put on there, like categories. We had an idea of getting really large banners that we can use like over and over that we could write things on and figure out where we would put them, have locations to put them in beforehand. We thought, and like people, two things came up, like what locations do we need to be at, and we're going to need people to be able to do that, right? So how are we going to find people, what other groups in the neighborhood are forming or formed that we could have them play a role in communications, and then sort of like this, we didn't get a chance to talk about this one, but I wrote down like a schedule for people. I think our concern was like we're going to need people.
Sure. I really like the schedule. I'm going to get to that with logistics as well, because one of the big issues here in Red Hook after the storm, I know from my own experience, was there was like a meeting every 2 hours in some weird location, and like it was like this constant go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. There was no coordination in it. So our goal would be to put together a master schedule and have set meetings at set times where all the support functions could be there, but also once we start transitioning to city support and the support functions get here, they can start showing up and we can get resource information from FEMA and OEM and those people as they become available. Thank you. Anything else from the communication?
Critical team member joined us, Tatiana came in, and we were talking about, real quickly, like
Sure.
universal symbols, because whether it be the hub or posters, the website, we could actually start preparing them now what different symbols mean.
Mm-hmm.
Right next to IKEA,
Right.
they use them all the time in the literature on how to put together whatever, so.
And
I
those,
was going to say language, like
Yeah.
we might need people to do translation.
well, language for sure. And also the symbols and the icons that you're talking about is also something that Thread Collective is going to be working on. And before you leave tonight, Rob, I wanted to introduce you to Gita, and we talked about you actually in our first meeting to talk about getting you involved in the branding process. That's why. Awesome.
If I might just add to
Yes,
that, let's state the obvious, that the communication hub, there would be like major hub for displaying stuff on the website, but also having analog stuff at the Mikio Center and the library, hopefully up by September, maybe, if all the consultants, everything works out. But that would have web display, but also analog posting, and official and less official, so people could post things. And also the idea of block captions, so if we, one idea is figure out a flow network for the neighborhood, and having key people at different posts, helping to direct people to resources and whatever as well.
Awesome. Brilliant. Maybe we should have some bullhorns. Bullhorns. In the stockpile. Put them in the stockpile. Please write all your notes down on that sheet. I'm going to collect that sheet from you. Logistics is activated after communication and coordination. What is the master list that came out of the logistics table? Get loud, good and fast.
Okay, fast. We need carts and hand trucks
Yes, ma'am.
to transport people. I think the idea of identifying other people like with vests and things like that would help those people in Red Hook. We definitely need buses, but we already have solved that problem. Contacting for supplies, that's not also an issue, because we already have our people that can bring us food at the drop of a hat. That's about it.
Beautiful. Awesome. Anybody else from the logistics management table want to say a few things, add a few notes? Something's taking notes. That's why we love something. Beautiful. Then we have public safety. Where are you at? Thank you, Dale.
Like you said, to identify, so now we can go is go door to door, letting people know that if they do want to evacuate, they can. If they do want to stay in their houses, they can stay in and make sure that their windows and whatever else is like safety tape down, or whoever wants to evacuate, lead them to the buses so when they can leave in a correct time.
Okay, I love it. So resource kits for the people who choose to stay.
Yes.
I like
People who choose to stay, they can't stay in their buildings, they can stay in their apartments, and we can meet up with health and medical to actually bring whatever they need to them. So, we can go to, what is that over there?
Stockpile?
Stockpile, exactly.
Right.
Stockpile. Get supplies, bring it to health and medical, because they're going to be in the MICIO,
Right.
so that we can actually go out and give it to everybody else. But we do actually need to identify us, so people will not actually open the door to anyone else
Sure.
if they do not know who we are and what we are doing.
Vests, like a
So,
vest or
yes, vest or like, let's say like,
ID card.
we are Red Hook.
Ready.
Ready.
Red Hood. Let's go. Woo. I want everybody to get used to that phrase because we're going to start saying it a lot over the next 3 months. Woo! Ready, Red Hood.
That's
Nice.
a great idea.
The vest.
No, but what about the?
Big and loud, Mama.
Remember the cards that we talked about?
The identification cards? Identification cards or a vest, whichever we think might, the only thing is the vest might be easier because anybody can put on a vest. The identification cards are
I know,
individual.
that's why I said cards that would say something like, preparedness or disaster.
There could be cards you slip under the door too.
Right.
Like if nobody's there, you can leave a card if you have an
Uh-huh.
emergency or whatever, and the phone, you don't
I
have a
love it.
working phone.
That's brilliant. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a quick one. I would like to let you know that last year we have about 28 people people think that they all work in my office, but they didn't work in my office. I only got 20. I work at 28. But what we did is we identified some of the college students that was working in my office. Was probably about 18 of them, and some of them live in Red Hook. And what we did is we went to Red Cross and certified them. So they are certified in Red Hook, and Red Cross is here, and they are identified in different buildings. So it will be good, we can provide names, make sure you have those lists, and when you're talking about the best, those people can be used and be part of this, because they're already trained, they're already been certified, and we're planning to do that this year again.
We are?
This summer.
So Karen, you'll give me that list?
Yeah, we can provide that.
Awesome. And we'll include them on the public safety distribution for that meeting, and that way they can be part of that. Dale?
Lindsay, you had an idea, right?
Yeah, more comments from the public safety table before we move on.
You want to, you said that for health and medical, they'd be working with nonprofits to get people to sign up as well. So the leads and these support functions would be the only ones doing outreach to get residents signed up to support some of these functions. So it was just reaching out to other nonprofits, getting people.
That's super important. For those of you who couldn't hear her, this is about reaching out to other community-based organizations and nonprofits who already function here, who people are familiar with and comfortable with, to help them, to get them to help us recruit people to be part of these different functions. We're going to talk a little more about recruiting people to be part of these functions when we wrap up, so that's brilliant. Anything else from public safety before we move on? Give it up, officer.
All right, I was going to say, you did speak regarding evacuations.
Yes.
It would be beneficial for first responders to know, that's why communication is important, to know who did evacuate. It will save us a lot, and we know, like, we can go back to that house later, let's go to where we think someone might be,
Sure.
might need our help right away. then it doesn't mean that the first responders are not gonna go back to every house, but let's go to where we know we need to
People
be.
stay. That's good.
That's communication.
I just want to make sure we didn't lose this point, that maybe somehow we have, if you need help, there's a card in your emergency packet that everyone in the community is going to get, that you can put on your apartment door, on your building door, and that way we know. I mean, who knows if everybody will remember, but that'll be a step towards identifying who we need to prioritize.
Yes, absolutely true. And in addition to that, the health and medical people, Matt is not here because he's getting a PhD and an MD for some reason at the same time. And he is, during the last storm, he collected a lot of data and information about the residents because he was the guy going door to door, and we have now compiled a list of people who need a welfare check, who have asked us in the future event to come door to door and do that. And plus, when the public safety goes door to door to help people evacuate, they will make a list of those people who stay. And so all of that will be happening through public safety, so all good. Any other comments from public safety? Brilliant. So once we have public safety activated with mandatory evacuation, we have the actual event, and that gets us to health and medical. Where is health and medical? Also to Mikia.
So I'm standing in for the health and medical B team. I'm usually not, but I think actually that helps see the holes that are in the plan. Because if Matt was still getting his PhD 5 years from now, which is very possible, and not here, what's going on with this plan. So what we noticed is we will go off about 6 hours after the event. But before it turns to that vulnerable population list, and there were a few questions in the group. Who's on that list? Where is it? How do we get it? Can we work with nonprofits to fill that list? Where will it be? So I think those were a lot of really great questions about how the logistics of the list and how to get on it, who can help people on it, and where will it be located.
I just want to comment on that as we go because I don't want to lose that.
Sure.
That is an ongoing conversation that has been happening. If we create a list of people who ask for welfare checks, and Matt, is on vacation in the Bahamas, and there's a hurricane, and we need the list, who owns the list? And right now, it's a conversation between, there's a number of options, but it's not been decided. So that's a really brilliant point. We have Red Hook volunteers here who have a database. And they have a lot of those names and a lot of that information, and we're looking to maybe merge that information with the information Matt has, so it's all there, and then house it online with a number of people in the community who can access that. We need to be very sensitive to people's personal information, so there's problems and issues and liability in there. That's the first one. The second option is we spoke with NYCHA, and NYCHA is also asking people to register with their community-based organizations or through NYCHA to have a welfare check post-disaster, and that's brilliant for NYCHA. The problem with the NYCHA piece is, if we share that with NYCHA, they can't share that back with us. That's a city limitation. That's by virtue of red tape and being a city public administration office. So we might share that information back, but since we're not sure NYCHA can be here in the first 72 hours, we may still need to have an alternate location to store the same information. So that's a conversation that's ongoing. It's problematic for sure. A very good point.
There should also be a process to how do we continually update the list, which there doesn't seem to be right now.
Correct.
Once the actual event happens, will someone from the medical team be assigned to the MICIO? That is our base, but let's say someone has an emergency in the houses and they just bring someone to the MICIO, will someone be there? It's not clearly stated here that the health and medical team will be coordinating with public safety to do the checks. We need to know what will be in the medical kits. Do you need to be an MD to join the team or have some nursing background or something? What's the qualifications? Someone already brought this up, someone to ID the team if they're going door to door. And I think that's it.
Beautiful. So those notices, those moments of, those points of issue are all ongoing and part of the plan that still needs to be banged out. When we have the meeting for the support function, those will be the pieces we try to address.
So will there be an actual nurse and doctor at the MICIO for the medical team? Was that thought about, bringing in a few volunteer?
It's possible. We have identified a few people here in Red Hook who can fill that role.
Nurses and doctors?
Yes. Will they be here? It's a very good question. And also paramedics. good question. Will they be here? If they're paramedic, like they work for the city, there's a handful of people who live here in Red Hook who are paramedics and work for the city. They'll probably be activated and working for the city. So they may not be here in Red Hook proper.
But
So
have we
those are-
tried to sort out, like, trying to nail down?
We have not sorted out these support functions through to their entirety at all. That's why we're having support function meetings after this. So
I think
that's.
we need to write down.
I just wanted a systematic way to then update the list after the storm, so it's like I checked on so-and-so, and like that resources aren't going double over, like, hey, I went to Mrs. Smith's house, and then 5 other people went to Mrs. Smith's house.
So I would encourage, and everybody can come to each of the support function meetings. Just know that that will be the lens of the meeting. But I would encourage you all to come to the support function meeting because Matt actually has a lot of that information and the data and the options for how to maintain those lists that are digital and online. That's awesome. Also problematic because of people's privacy and concerns about individual information.
Right, but it will be offline possibly
But
after.
we could do on and off and some combination of high and low tech. Yes, absolutely. More comments over here, George?
I was wondering whether you ever
I
looked,
can't hear you speak. I'm sorry.
whether you went back and looked at what the Long Island College Hospital did within the first 72 hours, and whether that can be done by Methodist Hospital, let's say.
That's a really good question, but I will tell you that Matt is working with Methodist and Lutheran, and I can't remember the name of the third hospital he's working with right now, to get them involved in this process. We've also reached out to the Adabo Center. We don't expect that the Adabo will be up and running in the first 72 hours, to be perfectly honest, because they weren't last time. However, if they are able to get open, we are hoping that they will open and participate in this. They know that we're making this plan.
And I guess like this is not a health thing, but
Yep.
I've been wanting to ask this. By the fall, or by the end of the year, the basis school will be open, and I was wondering whether you're thinking about, because I've heard things that they will have a public assembly area that will be available during emergencies.
Okay, so we didn't plan for the basis school because they're not here and they're not constructed yet and they're not put in place yet. So we didn't want to plan for something that we couldn't count on. So we didn't plan for that. That doesn't mean that at the next update of this plan in 6 months or a year, that doesn't get included. But I mean, it's brilliant. And it came up. Wally Baseball was a big fan for pushing that through. And if he were here right now, he would roll his eyes at me because he must have brought it up 50 times. So yeah, for sure, for sure. And it's not that we don't want them; it's that they're not here yet. So when they get here, we're going to include them in this process.
It's just something that I heard, oh, we're going to do this.
For sure. Anything else for health and medical? All right, let's go on to food and shelter.
Food and shelter.
Food and shelter. Hello, man.
He just asked for food.
He needs food and shelter. We have a specific request. So food and shelter, what do we need at this table?
At this table, we're gonna need everything.
Okay.
Beforehand, we will reach out to all of the co-op and networks.
Mhm.
You know, we have a farm here.
Right.
They can reach out to their co-op and networks and compile some items for distribution. We are looking to reach out to Jetro, Goya, Food Co-op in Park Slope, Salvation Army, Red Cross, and the Salvation and Red Cross maybe for cots. Red Cross definitely for the great blankets they gave us last time. Don't tell Alex I'm giving away the shop at Red Cross. Costco will reach out to the elected officials. We're going to talk to everyone about agencies and lists that we may be able to contact that they have contact with. We'll talk to the Red Hook restaurants and businesses about what can they donate if their establishments are closed so that food or items don't go to the waste. City Harvest, we should contact.
Sure.
Fairway, the Brooklyn Terminal Market over in East New York. BJ's, we need ice, we need water, toothpaste, toothbrushes, diapers, mouthwash, hygiene materials for ladies.
Sure.
Sunblock, socks, since it's June 25th. And then
And warm things for when it's cold. After the last hurricane, it snowed, right? So scarves, hats, jackets, coats, some of that stuff will
but
be.
if it's June 25th,
Yeah, well, it's June 25th, but you don't know what's happening. There's a hurricane. It could get nasty.
Climate change,
Yes, more from food and shelter?
climate change.
Climate change. That's another initiative of ours, Felix. Don't leave before I talk to you about it. Awesome. So that's food and shelter. Anybody else with food and shelter before we go on to utilities? All right, I'm looking at the clock too, people, so hang with me for just a few more minutes. Utilities?
Some of the things that we thought about was that maybe with utility companies we could have prioritized getting the utilities turned back on at our sites, so the buildings that we're using for recovery. And then maybe a list of electricians as possibly approved already by like Con Edison, and maybe building in maybe the contracts that was already given through rapid repair because those electricians already have a city contract.
Pre-approved electricians and
Yeah.
contractors. What?
Yeah. Then we talked about the solar lights that you heard more, and then you had a great idea about having a place where we could call and reserve generators that are
Beautiful. Okay. Anything else from utilities? Any questions, comments on utilities? Yes, ma'am.
What about for maybe the elderly or people who do not work once everything goes back online? Remember how long it took landline telephones to get reconnected?
Yes.
Maybe we could talk to someone about, I don't know, bartering or maybe getting some $5 cell phones
Some
for,
Metro PCS.
I don't know, for whatever deal you can dig up, Noel.
Burner phones.
Hey.
I feel like a badass when I have a burner phone. Just put it
yeah,
out.
I mean, I think that's a good thing for health and medical, for the people that are homebound.
You know what? We can reach into like the Metro PCS and the Verizons and T-Mobiles. They have huge response mechanisms and local community-based groups and organizations we can do that with. It usually just takes a phone call from our electeds. Felix?
Yeah, no, Felix, somebody else.
I'm
But anyway,
transitioning over.
no, let me just say this, this is a great point, and I think that even Time Warner and Verizon and AT&T, they have learned a big lesson. Not just here, but also in New Orleans and Mississippi and Alabama. So I think that as you progress with all this stuff, it will be ideal at least to invite some of those folks to be part of some of this brainstorming to make sure that not only they are on board, but we keep them accountable in advance. Because let me tell you, I have a Sprint, and my cell phone would not work right here when I was here. I had to go to across the street.
Yep.
So you know that was.
I have T-Mobile, and that happens to me right now.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
but the issue here is that happened, and people were completely decommunicado. So I think that as you progress, and the elected officials, we will be willing to help to make sure they come around this table to see what are other alternatives, and whether it's less expensive, what have you, but that the seniors, going back to the list. I'm trying not to disclose too much, but the bottom line is that we did 2,900 knock doors in 72 hours. By 84 hours, we had doctors in this building. We have about 90 doctors, and the reason we selected the doctor was based on the assessment that my staff and my volunteers did by going to all these apartments. And we do have a very, very sensitive list that is completely confidential about the people who live even in buildings that the elevator go only to the 5th floor, not to the 6th floor. And right now, as we speak, we're still fighting from NYCHA to move those people from those 6th floor because they're either obese or they don't have a leg, or how the hell you're going to put people with a wheelchair with the elevator doesn't go. So, trying to move them down, and that assessment is very, very important. And, it's very also important to keep it very confidential and use it for the purpose of what the purpose will be. And so we done the 2,900 doors. We have a very sensitive medicine, you name it, we identify. And you have people in these apartments who need a machine, electricity for their kidney machine, asthma machine, and so on and so forth. So, and people who have pacemakers who have to send information through the line, and was that line, so that, they get stuck right there.
Sure. There's a ton of these needs, and the lists are super important. I love that there's so many lists out there, because I feel like that's going to be the next thing that we need to really sit and brainstorm around, is how do we take all those lists that exist now in 5 or 6 different places between different agencies and here in the community and make it work for those people. That is a meeting I'm really excited about. I invite everybody to come to that. All right. So we covered all of these support functions, and I want to just talk about next steps. It's late. I usually let you go right on time, but since this is our last meeting doing the planning on this, and before we move into the support function specific meetings, I want to just say a couple of things for wrap up and next steps. So first of all, mark your calendars. We have a tentative date for September 13th, where we are having a community-wide event that is Ready Red Hook Day. I didn't name it myself, but I do like it. And we will engage the community to go to each of these locations and participate by walking through and going to each location with a bag and a map and a plan and getting information from communication and coordination and perhaps a small gift, and going to visitation to hear about what their resources will be there, and perhaps a $5 gift card to Fairway, and come to the stockpile and logistics management and find out about the resources that will be available there. We're in the process of planning that day. We're hoping that it is September 13th, 1-3. I like that it's on the 13th. That's kind of cool. So that is something to put on your calendars. We will have support function meetings. All of this is being documented. What you have not seen yet, that you will see in the next 7 days by the magic of television, is the actual documented plan that we have just hashed out over the last 4 months. It will not be 300 pages. That plan will be available, it will originally be available digitally because we will be doing plan presentations. Those plan presentations to the community will be here in the houses, here at the Mikio, in the houses, in the park, in the centers here locally. They will include people like Verizon, T-Mobile, partners that we're hoping to get, partners we already have through the city, including NYCHA, Con Edison, DEP. We are having other separate meetings to present this plan that this community has built to our electeds. We are having separate meetings to present this plan that we have built to the NYPD, the Fire Department, New York City Office of Emergency Management, as well as FEMA here in Region 2. So we have a lot of these coming up. All of them will be the same meeting, essentially, with a different lens depending on the audience, but we will be presenting this plan. Key members from the planning team will come and help present these plans at each meeting. I will be there, of course, because it gives me something to do in the evenings. But you're all welcome to come to all those meetings. They'll be made public. We'll make sure that that gets out for people to see. It's online, it's on the web. We'll share it with the STAR so we can get it out to everybody. And we'll be hashing out a lot of these things at the support function level in very individual meetings. At the community meetings where we do plan presentations, we will be asking the community members who come to sign up to be a member of one of these support functions, if it makes sense for them. It's not going to make sense for everybody, and we don't need 10,624 people to be part of an emergency support function somewhere. But we do need a handful more than what we have, and we will get that at these community meetings. People want to get involved. Maybe they didn't have time for this, but they want to be involved, and that's how they're going to contribute. So we're going to be making that ask at every community meeting and asking people to sign up. For the people who are here now, if you would like to sign up for one of these functions, you can do so at any one of these charts. There's a sign-up sheet, so make sure you do that before you leave. The plan presentation to FEMA and OEM, just so that we're very clear, is going to be talking about what we have going on here in the community already, so that they know post-event next time who to connect with for logistics, who to connect with for food and shelter. There's not going to be this hodgepodge where they show up and they're like, we're here now, we're setting up our own thing, we're doing our own thing because we don't have any clue what you're doing and neither do you. It's going to be, thank God these people knew what they were doing, got themselves set up, and now we're going to go connect with Rob because he's running logistics. I'm going to go to visitation and I'm going to connect with Sister Rosanna because she is running food and shelter out of visitation. We're going to try and get at those support function meetings some of the resources that we had during Hurricane Sandy. So that during Hurricane Nydia, we have that wealth of knowledge and experience from that event. That's really important. There are people not represented here in this meeting today that were instrumental in setting up food distribution, that were instrumental in making sure we had communications going out. And we want to make sure we take the information and experience they had and incorporate it into these functions so they're real. It doesn't pay to do all this work and have it be fake. So that's what we're going to do next. Just so you guys know, we will be doing a couple of brainstorming sessions, hopefully with everybody for the electeds, to try and do things like public-private partnerships with the phone companies and utilities to make sure we have liaisons at DEP and Con Edison ahead of time to build these contact lists ahead of time for these specific functions. So we're excited about that. This, as I said before, is the last of our planning input meetings. For those of you who don't know, we have a small planning team of 15 people, cross-section of the community, who've been planning for the last 4 months. And every time we have a planning meeting, we come to the community and we walk through the same material and we get the input like the input we just got from you now. We're done. We have built our plan. We have set our piece. As we go through these community presentations, we will get more feedback from other people. It will be incorporated as we go, until by the end of the summer we have this complete document that represents everything that everybody in Red Hook has to bring to the table. It'll be in this document, and then we're going to practice it in real time in September, and then it'll be in our brains as well, which is more important. So that's what we've done. That's where we're headed. I just have to say, having done this for 15 years, I have never seen a community come together like this. I had the privilege of working in New Orleans after Katrina, and I gotta say, nothing came down this smoothly. It probably didn't feel smooth on your end, and I gotta tell you, there were days it didn't feel smooth on my end either, but this process has been effective, and the outcomes are about to be seen. So I'm super, super honored to have been part of this process with you, and I hope that when you see the advertisements for these community meetings, that you come. Bring your neighbors, bring your friends. To date, we have had just over 250 people involved in this planning process from beginning to today. So I thank all 250 of you and those who are not here, but we need to get the other 10,000 people in Red Hook out to these community meetings so they can see the work that we've done. So that's what we're looking for from you guys for next steps. Are there any questions before we wrap it up? Ms. Naisha.
Did everyone sign in? Everyone signed in?
Don't leave without signing in because we can't stalk you via email unless you sign in.
Or texts or what's that? Hashtag?
Hashtag. Any other questions or comments on the process? Next steps? Someone want to just tell me they really like my dress? You're welcome.
Love it.
All right, thank you guys.
So you're gonna follow for the elected also at night.
I got about 8 things to follow my